Several hours and about 3 packs of note cards later, I did it. Outline is done. Hey friends, welcome back to the channel. If you're new here, I'm Elysia Writes, writer, reader, creative chaos enthusiast, and frequent coffee drinker. So today I'm bringing you behind the scenes of a major turning point in my writing process. I'm finalizing the outline of my book. But let me tell you, it wasn't easy, and frankly, it was not organized. So the first time I tried outlining it, well, I didn't. I tried to pants the entire book. Just me, a blank page, and the misguided confidence of someone who has watched one too many Write With Me TikToks. I made it all of 4 chapters before I went, wait, what happens now? So then I decided, well, how about a small outline? I'll just do a very basic 3-act story structure outline. The thing was, I actually did make it through all 3 books before deciding that, this makes far more sense in a dual point of view. Then in round 2, I made it all about 5 chapters in before I realized my second main character had no goal, my antagonist was just vibes, and the rest of the plot was holier than Swiss cheese. Needless to say, that version died a quiet death. It wasn't until I picked up Save the Cat Writes a Novel by Jessica Brody that I started to feel like I had a real structure, a system that supported creativity without strangling it to death. In this video, we'll walk through how I pulled together my mess of ideas, the 3 tools I used, my notebooks, OneNote, and Scrivener, and how I used the 3-act structure to finally outline something I can write with confidence. If you're in the middle of your own writing chaos, this one's for you. So first, I had to get everything out of my brain and into one place. This meant going back through months and multiple notebooks of scribbles, free writes, plot dumps, random notes I made in the margins of those random scenes and plot dumps. So you see, my notebooks are kind of like creative junk drawers. They're full of random ideas that I wrote down at 2 a.m., overly dramatic monologues I may or may not use, and drawings that look like they're rejected D&D maps. It's messy, but it's honest. So then I moved over to OneNote. This is where, frankly, I just wanted to be more easily able to search my notes and maybe sprinkle in some organization within the chaos. Also, it is extremely important to me to have a digital backup of all of my ramblings because, frankly, at some point, I am going to either lose this notebook or spill coffee all over it. So now I've got everything moved into a full digital binder. This has tabs for plot ideas, character sheets, a tab literally called Things I Should Probably Figure Out, and a tab that I've been using for dictation when I feel more like talking through issues, which frankly using OneNote for dictation is a choice and one that I don't really recommend. So there's also about 50 tabs that are frankly just sitting at untitled, which is perfectly fine. And while it would be nice if this was perfectly aesthetic, that's just not how my brain and probably most people's work. It is legitimately supposed to be a backup of my notebook and allow me to switch between my laptop and my iPad a bit more seamlessly. And while putting everything in OneNote started off as very overwhelming, it ended up being kind of magical because as I pulled everything into one place, I realized I might actually have a good story at the end of this. And frankly, it was just hiding under layers of unfinished ideas. And by the way, if you've got ideas scattered across 10 notebooks, 2 voice memos, and a random napkin in your purse or bag, you're not behind. You're just in the discovery phase of your story. So at this point, I knew I needed structure. And when I made the choice to re-outline for what felt like the 50th time, I had bought in Save the Cat Writes a Novel and Save the Cat Writes a YA Novel, but both by Jessica Brody. This, at this point, is when I decided to break it out and actually take a look at what's included and follow the 15 story beats that it goes over for the 3-act structure. So those are, in Act 1, you have the setup, which is the opening image, theme stated, setup, your catalyst, and then the debate your protagonists are having. Then within Act 2, you have the confrontation. This is by far the largest chunk of your story. You have your break into 2, your B story, fun and games, midpoint, bad guys close in, which frankly was the most fun to note card, your all is lost, dark night of the soul, and that's what moves you into Act 3, which is the shortest part. That is your break into 3, your finale, and your final image. So what I ended up loving about this method is that it actually really did give me the outline template I needed to really kind of nail the emotional flow of my story. I wasn't just checking off plot points or specific 3-act beats I was supposed to hit. I was actually watching my characters transform as I was walking through all 15 beats. You know, I literally went beat by beat on note cards, multiple in fact, asking what is the opening image of my story? What lie is my protagonist believing in at the start? What is the all is lost moment that'll rip their heart out and mine? And every idea I jotted down brought me closer to the real working outline. It also made for a fun time being a floor troll for a while. So after I finished writing out all of my big story beats, I mapped them out on note cards. This worked really well for my own brain. So we got book 1, book 2, book 3, because I ran out of room. The colored cards is the storyline, as if you were doing the series, and then the white cards are specific to each individual book. Holy bananas, Batman. I ended up calling that my notebook adjacent time. I ended up using a kind of color-coded system where each book had their own colored note cards and each act had their own color like header, and then each protagonist had their own color bullet points. This actually really helped me because I was able to map it out in such a way that I wasn't actually losing where I was and who was doing what. Also, it kind of made me feel like that type of writer now. It also allowed me to kind of freely brainstorm without the added pressure because I had multiple note cards. So if I decided that, nope, this doesn't fit or this isn't right, I just chucked that note card into the trash and wrote a new one. So once I got done with that, I did copy all of my note cards into OneNote because see above with the notebook, they're going to get lost. In fact, my cats have knocked them down at least 4 or 5 times at this point. So on each note card, that covers a specific beat for a specific book for a specific act. And it includes kind of who that scene is for, what the character goal is, and any relevant like plot points, extra like little like hints for dropping breadcrumbs throughout the book series. I tried to include as much detail as possible while still keeping it high level enough that it didn't make it burdensome to try to type everything into the computer. So then once I got everything into OneNote, I then went and put everything into Scrivener. I did do this manually as well, because why not? And frankly, putting into Scrivener, is kind of really where my outline came to life. I was able to set up folders for each act. I was able to header the different beats and include those as notes. I was able to delineate between which protagonist that scene was for and what chapter that protagonist's viewpoint was going to be. I also really enjoyed the drag and drop feature, because there was one point where I just kept going and absolutely put everything into Act 1 and then dragged all the note cards over to Act 2, which was really cool. Now, the big downside to Scrivener, there is no syncing between my iPad and my computer unless I have a Dropbox account, which I don't. So if I want to work on the go and don't want to lug around my computer, my laptop, I have to either ensure I have an updated copy of the Scrivener file on my iPad, and then if I make any changes, move that same file over to my computer so it's updated here as well, which is kind of a pain. So right now, to get around that, I kind of have what I'm calling my drop zone in my OneNote, where I'm copying the page I'm working on in Scrivener and just copying it back and forth, which is a choice that I am making. But even then, having them both allows me to stay flexible, and having the note cards within there allows me to ensure that I have the room for surprises as I continue to write. Because sometimes my characters are going to ignore the outline entirely. Sometimes a grumpy side character accidentally becomes the emotional core of the story, and now I have to rewrite everything. And sometimes I read a scene back and realize, no, that's not the vibe. So I treat an outline like it is a living document. It evolves as I write. If a scene needs to shift, I shift it. If a character grows in a different direction, I follow it. But the outline keeps me anchored. It keeps me from not drifting too far off the path. So it took me 2 failed outlines, a mini creative meltdown, and a lot of coffee. But now I have a blueprint that actually works. If you're stuck in the messy middle of outlining or pantsing your way into a corner, this is your sign. Try a structure. It doesn't have to kill your creativity. It might just give it direction. So let's talk in the comments. Are you a plotter, a pantser, or a plantser like me? Have you used Save the Cat before? Or another outlining method? What's your go-to writing tool? I am not married to Scrivener, and if you guys give me a good suggestion, I will try it out. If this video has helped, give it a like, hit subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one with more writing chaos tips and behind-the-scenes creativity. Toodaloo for now.